I think that we are standing on a gold mine for our community, and not just for the African American community, but the diversity of voices, the diversity of skin. And it's something that is truly a blessing that we're here at this time together. It's not an accident.
And just to touch on the collaborative aspect, I want and I hope and I dream that our institutions collaborate, meaning that beyond the three of us, but that there's a lasting impact and a lasting collaborative spirit in our institutions. That start with us, yeah. Start with us.
I think that my entire career has brought me to a time such as this. I started in communications. I was a radio reporter, went in to work for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, had a sprint, or a stint rather, with the National Council of Negro Women, sitting under the tutelage of Dr. Dorothy Height. And as a result of that, I went to the United States Agency for International Development and was able to go all over the continent of Africa to learn about education, education initiatives, art, the origins of art and dance and history. And on a personal side, my mother, my family, I came from a family of artists. My great-grandmother was a pianist, and she taught the white children how to play the piano in Arcadia, Louisiana. My grandmother was a pianist. My mother was a pianist. I have an uncle, Uncle Delbert. He was a saxophone player, and he was in Lady Sings the Blues. Yeah. And art history has always been at the table. We always talked about it. And I'm an artist. I'm a poet. So from a leadership perspective, I've had an opportunity to work with leaders from all over the world, and had an opportunity to spend a lot of time in the private sector and the nonprofit sector in management. And I just believe that everything happens for a reason, that there are no accidents. And I am here now because I just think that it's the time.
Yeah.
How about you?
Thank you for sharing. I knew none of those things. What a journey.
It's been a wonderful journey, but a blessing.
What a journey. I mean, Dorothy Heights, I mean, we think about these people. Okay, I'd say for me, I'm originally from Houston. I wanted to ask where you were from.
I was born in Los Angeles. Was born in LA, and my dad was in the Army, so we traveled all over the world. As a matter of fact, he was one of the first African American sergeant majors appointed by Congress back in the early 60s to be a sergeant major in the Army. So LA, but all over, and spent a lot of time in Houston.
Okay, well, I just came from LA, which is now, I would say, my second home. I was there 15 years, just in Hyde Park. But originally from Houston. I grew up in Port Arthur, Texas, just east of Houston, right on the Louisiana border. I always tell people it's the place where the railroad track divides the east side from the west side. Black folks live on the west side. non-Black folks on the East Side. So it informs how I kind of see the world growing up in Port Arthur. Aside from knowing that I had to get out of there because I saw the world as a much bigger place. And I'm a theater baby. Introduced to theater early on in high school. It was a teacher, a mentor that said, hey, you got something there. You should really cultivate that. And I used to compete using Langston Hughes poems, Nikki Giovanni poems, doing UIL competitions all over the state. Little Black boy doing these Black poems. What that taught me, which I didn't realize at the time, is those artists had something to say, and essentially they started to shape my politic and my viewpoint of the world. I went to Howard in DC and studied theater there. And it was there that another mentor stepped in, just like my theater teacher. Costume designer, his name was Reggie Ray, and he would use his students on his professional productions. And so working alongside him, I got to go to Berkeley Rep, the Ensemble down in Houston, the Public Theater in New York City, as an assistant. And I was able to see how theater was being made at that time. And it was him who told me, you got a little something there, you got a little brain, you got some skills. Notice who's on the other side of the table, of that producing table. We'd be working on these Black stories, but there were not folks who looked like me producing and leading those institutions. And so he really instilled in me, then there's a pathway for you if you want to have that pathway. Left Howard and said, I'm gonna be a producer. I'm gonna produce for young people. I'm gonna be able to tell our stories and really create space in ways that had not been held for us. Left there, spent some time in Chicago, which I think is the best theater town in the country, if you ask me, until Dallas. Left Chicago, went to California and LA to grad school. And it was there I really feel like I found my creative voice. I paired that voice with an organizing practice that I've had for a very long time, really thinking, how do I use creative work, creative experiences in order to organize community, raise their consciousness, build their skills, reflect things that we don't always get to be at the table and talk about, put that into play, build the conversation around it. And, I've been able to take the traditional theater practice and making, pair that with social impact work, and, the opportunity for impact here in Dallas, thinking about the Forest Theater, its history, it was an opportunity I could not pass up. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Who are these people? Having space, being able to recreate what it means to gather in that space, being able to do that in a community that has been so divested from, can you take this container and make it something that can be long lasting for 7 generations?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what brought me here.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. What about you, Van?
I think for me, it was, I am a theater baby just like you. Theater kept me out of trouble. I was getting in quite a bit of trouble, and I did A Christmas Carol one year, and that was it for me. A show that never actually made it to opening night. It was closed for funding. But it was a beautiful thing for me to connect with folks, connect with myself in a way that I hadn't connected before. And I've been doing and producing and managing venues ever since. So theater has been my entire life. I've never had a normal job. I don't know what that is like, to not be a part of the arts. And so I count that as a blessing for sure. So coming out of college, I decided I was going to be on cruise ships for a couple of years, and I spent 4 years managing venues on ships and cast and crews on ships. And that was probably a seminal moment for me in just getting the cultural values that I have now are deeply rooted in that moment of working with so many diverse communities and cultures, and what they had to bring to art. That was a perspective that I had not seen growing up in Fort Worth. And so, I've been managing venues, and then I saw this job to lead a Black cultural institution that produces art. They have this beautiful little black box. I'm like, okay, this is the job I think that I want. This is something that I'm striving for, seeking. And sure enough, my number was called. And it's been a blessing. I mean, learning every day, being here, learning something new about myself, learning something new about this community, and the deeply rooted love that they have for this space. Hearing folks tell me that they grew up in this space, and that they hadn't been back for 20 years, and they're so excited to be back here again. And I love that energy that has come to support me in this endeavor.
So what I'm hearing from all three of us is that it's the answer to a calling.
Yeah, yeah. It really does feel that way.
It's interesting, though, that you asked that question, because I feel in this moment that I know you and that we've known each other, that we have been in this place before, even though we haven't. But I think that speaks to the work. I think it speaks to the desires of our hearts. I think it speaks to our commitment and dedication. So when we say that this is so much bigger than us, for me, what that looks like is I want to ensure that the African American Museum is around for another 50 years. Perpetuity
Yeah,
is my word.
yeah.
I want to make sure that my grandchildren's children can walk through that museum and receive the education that they need, the inspiration, that they can look at the photos and the artwork and see themselves, that we can invite dancers in,
Yeah.
and theater. We were talking before you got here, Nijuel, and that this moment is organic.
Mm-hmm.
It is purposeful. And I'm really looking forward to working and drilling down how we can develop programs together and collaborate for something that will impact the community. I think that we are standing on a gold mine for our community, and not just for the African American community, but the diversity of voices, the diversity of skin. And it's something that is truly a blessing that we're here at this time together. It's not an accident.
And just to touch on the collaborative aspect, I want and I hope and I dream that our institutions collaborate, meaning that beyond the three of us, but
Right.
that there's a lasting impact and a lasting collaborative spirit in our institutions. That start with us. Yeah,
Yeah.
start with us.
It does. I mean, I'm honored to be at the table, one, because your institutions are actually the models that have been speaking to me through folks I've been meeting with. They talk about going to both of these institutions, raising their children in these institutions, and the memories they hold. I know that I'm excited to collaborate and build because I feel like historically we've been here before in some ways.
Yes.
I know I've been calling on history a lot as I think about how the forest comes to life. And there's a way in which uh, our spaces can be so coordinated and support each other, so we don't have to do anything in isolation, which I'm not interested in doing anything else in isolation. A way in which we can really maximize on resources, both human resources, but also the things that make all of our institutions go round, how do we build structural support entities that may not exist, that may allow the institutions to live 50 years into the future,
Yeah.
7 generations into the future is what I've been telling people. That's what I'm excited about as well, because I feel like those things can live even beyond the institution because they can impact the community in ways that I think will be very much long lasting.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, very much.
What a gift we've been given.
Every day.
What a gift.
Every day.
Yeah.
It is.
Treasure. I shared that I'm having conversations still with Dr. Robinson, which is very important to me.
Yeah.
That he, first of all, that he trusts me.
Yeah.
When I think about that, I get a little weepy sometimes that this 84-year-old man who built this institution from the ground up is willing to hand the leadership over to me. So, like you said, I don't take that lightly. One of the things that in my conversations that I promised him that I would build upon is one of the exhibits in our in the museum on the Freedmen's Town and the history of Dallas, the history of Black Dallas, the history of South Dallas. That's one thing that I definitely want to expand.
Oh, yeah.
And I've made a promise to him that that's one of the visions or the goals that we have, to provide a space of healing for South Dallas residents, that they can come to and see these are our ancestors. These are the stores that we had. Here are the bakeries and the businesses and all of the life, the humanity that we had at one time.
Right.
In South Dallas. So that's one of the gifts that I see myself kind of involving our institution in, building upon that as far as the community and letting the community see that history and how vibrant it was. I think it's just so important that we understand what a rich history we have here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know the forest has been closed for 20 years and 20 plus years. And so, but even hearing you talk about the history that exists in the museum and that storytelling, how does that translate in the live performance space? We've talked about the visual arts and the making that happens at South Dallas Cultural Center. I am, I'm curious how to use storytelling in the various ways, or story making, in order to also hold that history. Lots of elders that I've been speaking to since my arrival have been talking about keep the memory, tell the story, use the space not only to showcase the art, but also to do what the schools are not able to do. What history teachers may not be able to say, how do you use the artistic space in order to do that? And I'm hoping there's the opportunity to do that collaboratively, because arts institutions are more than that. They are civic. They are new containers for that third place, for memory, history, storytelling.
Yeah, I really do believe that, particularly at the Freedman Town exhibition, who is there an artist that's a part of that as well?
The curator is Philip Collins.
Philip Collins.
So we, over the years, were able to gather a lot of artifacts before the destruction of Freedman's Town. So it's almost like walking back in time.
Yeah.
And I love what you said, what you just said. You're making my mind, the wheels of my head just turn about, making it available in an artistic space where there is movement and dance.
Yeah.
That is a collaboration.
And that's what I was really going with. That is that just last month we had an exhibition dedicated to the Freedmen's Town, and using that as a collaborative experience to bring folks to the museum, to see a performance, those are the ways that we can have some synergy in connecting the pieces, right? Because we do have unique opportunities amongst our institutions. That can highlight a specific aspect of our shared history.
I agree.
Yeah.
And Nijuel, you said something that that sparked my thought process too, and that is, you said protecting our memory. So right now we have an exhibit called Protecting Cultural Memory. And it is, the artist is called Mr. Imagination. And he had an experience. Is from Chicago. He was shot in the stomach, went into a coma, and he just had all these visions. And so he took ordinary objects and created amazing art. But the thought of protecting cultural memory, and I asked Margie Reese, who is our chief programs officer, how did you think about it? Where did that come from? Because to me, it's brilliant. Protecting cultural memory. So it's not just looking at history, right? It is protecting the memory of that history. And I think that is part of the calling.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll take it a step further.
Okay, come on now.
Because memory is a part of it. And what I've been thinking a lot about is imagination and innovation. We've been talking about this. I'm getting chills thinking about it, because we are some innovative people.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a generation of both young people and just people who don't realize the amount of things that Black folks have created, making ways out of no way, and how that creative process contributes to our ability to thrive and survive.
Yes.
And because the artistic space, especially the performing side, but I think across discipline, if we give people a process to create and imagine, what is possible?
Yeah.
What is possible? And I'm grateful that the Forest has both the historic stage, where you can see the creme de la creme performing artist, and there's a makerspace where you can make things yourself, and there's a pathway, a pipeline. And I'm excited, probably talking over myself, but I think it's the memory and also the ability to imagine and innovate using the creative arts and performing arts that I'm super excited about building a container for.
And think about that, looking at our children and looking at the next generation. What you just said, if we can have a space where the children can learn and see and imagine, then it takes the top off of their heads, and then that pours in opportunities for them to think, I can do this. I can. In an environment so many times that says, no, you can't, or not giving our children all of the information, or, trying not to talk about the historical aspects of the brilliance and the overcoming and the perseverance and the tenacity of African American people. But I think it's important, probably now more than any time in history, that we do create those spaces so that they can learn and grow.
Where their entrepreneurial spirit even comes
Exactly,
from.
exactly.
Because it's embedded in all of us.
Yes.
Deeply rooted. Yeah. With specific programming, I think that there's some catalog programs that we have here that need a better story told rather than a complete renovation. And so the Music Lounge is our concert series that we host here quarterly, getting folks here to create and be together and commune. We also have an intro mixer, a mixer series where we get artists together and collaborate and fly folks in to have some master classes and whatnot. And so in that vein, what I believe this institution's purpose is to be an incubator, is to grow and develop young artists who are curious and exploring the African diaspora. And so that curiosity is what I am hoping to lean into for children, is giving them the space to be curious, teaching them how to be curious. Some folks are afraid of being curious and trying. One of my favorite things to talk about is providing people the opportunity to fail gloriously, like to strive so hard, and to keep and providing that space, what it feels like that you're in a space that you're capable of trying something and not succeeding, and then figuring out how to do it again and keep going at it. So that's what I believe this space is meant to be and what I'm supposed to serve. And so we're really going to be focusing on education of not just kids, but of the entire community. Hosting more authors and conversations with the community. We'll have quite a bit of that coming in, as well as some smaller things with story times and childhood development that we'll be bringing on. So education and artist incubation are really what I'm looking forward to helping pave that path.
Okay. I'm trying to get the theater open to start. No. I know we've talked about it. I don't know if I share just like all that is in this space, because now that the space is under construction, I don't think a lot of people know all that's in this container at MOK and SM Ray. There's a 1,000-seat concert hall, a 200-seat studio theater. There is a 13,000 square foot maker space that has a podcast studio, recording studio, media lab, an immersive video art studio soundstage. There's green space, meeting space. There's a kitchen. There's bars. It's a lot of space. And I'm grateful for the Forest Forward team for all the work to both fundraise, but also to just imagine that we need that type of space. And I'm going to be spending the next year collaborating with both community members and the leadership team to really figure out, how do we fill this space? How do we fill this space to close gaps that may exist in the performance space? How do we use this space in a way that builds an ecosystem so that dollars stay within our community? We're building skills of folks in community, and we're able to use the space in order to activate that. I have dreams about, there's a play, The Color Museum, and it's a series of vignettes by George C. Wolfe. The last vignette is called The Party. I don't know, are you familiar with this? It's basically this party where this woman is at, and she sees Fats Waller, she sees Duke Ellington, she sees Aunt Jemima in the kitchen cooking. When I think about our programming, I think about a space where artists and community members are just filling the space, going to see multidisciplinary work from dance, theater, to film, to being a part of dynamic talks, doing dynamic demonstrations. I could see people dancing in the halls while getting coffee to talk about their next big creative project. How do I create a container where the art on stage is inspiring people to actually create? And how do we create a space where people can just come out, hang out, and be creative? I'm excited to fill that. Don't expect to do it alone.
I am so excited for both of you. I really am. I'm just grateful for this time. Well, the African American Museum is 38,000 square feet,
Yeah.
3 floors. I have every morning that I walk in the building, I walk the entire 38,000 square feet. I get chills when I go in there. Our programming, I'm really interested in getting children into the museum. And so that's going to be one of our focuses, is to get younger people into the museum, into their museum. We have an entire educational suite downstairs in the basement area. We're renovating that, putting some new paint on the walls. We have an auditorium. We have a literary series. I'm very excited to say that in the last, this summer, we were given a grant that focused on our conservation work.
Yeah.
And which is huge.
It's important.
It's not just to conserve and preserve, but if we're going to move forward for the future, we have to understand how important that is. This past summer, we brought in both high school and college students from the HBCUs to learn about conservation work. The exhibit that we have, Mr. Imagination, is probably the only exhibit in the country that also has a conservation lab in the back of the exhibit so that our visitors can see in real time what the science is behind conservation work. This is important because it allows students to see that that could be a career path for them.
Yeah.
We gotta talk. We gotta talk to you because I'm excited to hear and learn. And Vince already knows this. Like, I've been asking, like, okay, how do I fit into this puzzle so that we are maximizing the opportunities and also being coordinated? One of the questions I asked early on coming into this role is there a table of the Black art and cultural institutions? And we're here.
Right here,
Here's the
right,
table.
right now.
Yeah.
I am daydreaming. No. Yeah, right now we already have some scheduled programming that was already calendared. And so we'll be continuing with that, but I'll be looking for opportunities to provide access to the space for those guests, right? I want them to come over here and experience what South Dallas culture is, rather than the other way around of me creating something for FIFA. But what is it? What is this community doing, and what art are we producing over here? Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to report that we made a major announcement to our board on Wednesday, and what we will be mounting is the Nelson Mandela exhibit during FIFA.
That's awesome.
It is going to be big. Our vision is big, and it will. I'm looking at it as the fulcrum, and everything that we will do outside of the exhibit, our programming, some of the relationships with the museum, our fundraising is going to be centered around that exhibit.
Yep.
So it will take up our entire gallery space. I'm super excited about it, not only because we are offering this for South Dallas, but also internationally. Nelson Mandela was a huge soccer fan. So we're looking at the educational aspects of how we can replicate that, how we can partner, and all of the good things.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
Okay. I gotta get the theater open. So looking forward to supporting, finding ways to support. I also think it is not neutral that, millions of people are going to descend, maybe not millions, hundreds of thousands of people will descend on South Dallas from around the world. I'm I'm curious, again, uh, how we just maximize that opportunity to tell our stories, but also to build relationships.
Yes.
Um, because I do think Dallas is underrated, and there's an opportunity to continue like spreading the knowledge and wealth and history that's here, especially from an artistic point of view.
Absolutely, absolutely, and integrate that message. I think there are opportunities for our branding and message integration to happen next year.
Yeah.
Even if we're telling the story that the theater is coming, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and get people excited with you.
yes, yes. I'm moving into the space knowing that there's a deep history, and I'm moving into the space guided by residents, and I name residents versus community as a more specific term in order to really challenge how I'm just, people use the word community, community, community.
Correct.
Um, there's a way in which impact on residents, as I'm very sensitive to that, especially the legacy residents in the neighborhood, and I'm excited to collaborate with residents, but also just our larger strategy of how we minimize displacement and we maximize opportunity for access and resources. Um, so when I think about impact for the forest, it really is over the next year, building pathways for folks to engage in the design process and co-creating and curating what is to come in terms of programming, to build partnerships, uh, building some best practices around that, building some language around that so that we can do that in an authentic way. Um, I also think uh, this ecosystem is going to provide jobs, is going to require new vendors, it's going to require us to upstart things that may not exist. And I'm working as hard as I can to make sure that if it doesn't exist in South Dallas, can we create it? Where's that floors? Can we make it here? Because there's only a handful of Black-led, Black-serving, Black-owned theater institutions in the world.
Yeah.
And we've got one right here in South Dallas. And I'm excited about being able to co-create and co-activate that space. Like I said, I don't desire to do anything in isolation. And it's going to take residents and community to actually get it across the finish line. And I hope I can just build a container to facilitate that. So we hiring. So if y'all know folks, there's an opportunity to create impact even in that way as we build the leadership team. Yeah, that's what we're working on. Impact.
We're always looking for our residents in the South Dallas area to be participants in the life of the theater and not spectators. Whether that is what service do you offer, what business do you have, would you like to come and volunteer? What the message that I want residents to really understand is the museum, the African American Museum, is your museum. This is your place. This is our space. This is not Lisa Ross's museum.
Okay.
It is not Dr. Harry Robinson's museum, even though he laid the foundation. My responsibility, of course, as I've said, is to carry that legacy on, but I'm carrying the legacy on for the people.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for resources. We need resources. We need folks that can do certain things, technology. I mean, and like you said, it may not even exist now. Let's create it. So I'm looking to grow, but not in isolation. We have to grow together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think in that same vein, South Dallas Culture Center is an institution that has been deeply rooted as a community resource. I mentioned earlier that people have grown up here. They've grown up in this space. They've become activists in this space. They've become artists in this space. And I really am focused on ensuring that the next generation gets to say that I grew up in this space. I found my voice in this space. Most of our patrons are from this area. And so that's the beauty of it, is that we get to see that creativity and what's happening here, and they're not afraid to come in and feel welcome in our doors. And so we're going to continue that. We're going to continue focusing on what this community needs, how I can provide better health access to this community, how I can do things that are beyond what some may think a cultural arts facility should be doing. But what I'm doing is trying to care for the whole person. Yeah.
I woke up the other day thinking about, this question was on my mind. This was Sunday.
Yeah.
What is the curriculum for community? What do we need to know? Where are the gaps that exist? And how does an institution like the Forest Theater, the museum, the South Dallas, how do we fill those gaps? How do we answer those questions? And I'm talking about impact. If I had a whiteboard, like those are the questions I want to put in front of me, so I can start to just identify them, because I see the campus, I see what we're doing as a curriculum for community. Curriculum may not be the right word. That's not like that feels a little too school-like. Yeah. But it is, where is there just opportunity to actually respond to the needs of our community through the art making, through the culture? Because even you speak about Nelson Mandela, that's responding to something, that a gap people may not have, knowledge people may not have, that is closing, And I guess I'm just naming that right now, because I'm hoping we continue to think about what is that curriculum? What are the gaps? What are the opportunities to really raise consciousness?
Yes.
I love that.
Understand family, reinsert values, build an ethos for how we hold community, hold leadership, hold responsibility to community and leadership. Yep. One of the first things I got kind of facilitated is an opportunity to really hear from people. So very traditionally released a survey, started to do focus groups, doing one-on-ones to really figure out what do people need, what do they desire, how are they making meaning of today. And in that story and data collection, what I heard is that more opportunities are needed for artists to showcase their work. More opportunities are needed for artists to cultivate their work. And I've been asking a lot, like, do you have an artistic home as a performing artist? And most people are like, oh, what do you mean by that? What is a home? What do I need in a home? And that has been informing how I'm starting to think about the power of this place. So thinking about equity for artists, one, I'm working to build a pipeline. We collaborate with the MLK Junior Arts Academy, which is recently changed to provide performing arts training to young people in middle school, with the idea that it'll prepare them for high school and beyond. So can I build a pipeline starting at middle school where folks can access both opportunities at the Forest and in the classroom? Those camps, we currently have a camp with Broadway Dallas. Can those camps translate into schools where they get a little bit more fine-tuned skills with the national faculty to really grow their craft? Can that then translate for opportunities in space to develop their craft in the Forest, either through the studio space or by apprenticeships, fellowships within the theater? And then can that lead to actually a professional career, and this be their launch pad for that? Don't have all the details, but what I'm clear about is that mentorship and cultivation, even from middle school, is super important. And to be able to build a pathway where you get to walk the same stage as Erykah Badu or B.B. King or any of the luminaries who have donned the Forest stage, can we strategically build a pipeline program for that? So I'm thinking about that for artists. And then just what are the opportunities that this space creates to give artists opportunities? From the music in the elevator, to the pre-show performance, to the design of the program. Art, art, art. How do I just break that barrier of you have to do it a certain way? An artist could prepare this table for us, you know? So I'm trying to think non-traditionally about that, because there are so many resources that go out the door. Can I ask the question, can artists do that?
That's amazing. That's an amazing opportunity for you to create that space for artists to.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Well, it's an ecosystem. I mean, it's like, we're already going to spend these resources. How do I just redirect them in ways that I really feel like art is the most vulnerable in our community? The most vulnerable, and yet the most spiritual and powerful. And we invest least in the artist. And I'm hoping the space can model how we reverse that.
Yeah.
So people can eat, take care of their families, do their very best work, which is help us to see ourselves. You know what I mean?
And I think that the museums and libraries and theaters is the educational future of our country. So how can we use our space in a way that can touch these touch points and touch all of them? And that might be the place of collaboration. Because like you said, we need rack cards for our exhibits. We need videos. We need chefs when we have receptions. There's a myriad of things that we need, and I think that our cultural institutions are the home.
Yeah. 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 I think that, you know, the Culture Center's impact on artists in particular is about them developing, right? I think when I view this discussion about the three of us, right, many of these artists will start in my building, is the way that I see it. And many of professional artists that are producing today started here. And so trying to provide greater access to this space, letting folks know, I'm gonna preach till I can't anymore, that this is an accessible space for artists to create work. Not just show it, but actually create work. Most artists that I have that exhibit here had no idea until they came here for an exhibit that this is actually a space that you can produce work in. You know, I had an artist show up just last weekend that it's like, I didn't have a space large enough. I just need the space to think about this. And so she laid out all of her work in the art studio, and I'm like, this is what I want to see every day here. This is who we are meant to be serving. This is why we're open, right? For these moments of curiosity and supporting those artists. But not only supporting their artistic endeavors, but also the nitty gritty, right? The funding, you know, how to survive and thrive as an artist. That educational process, I think, is one that has been missing for some time. And so really leaning into educating artists on what it takes to be a full-time artist. I have a huge appetite for that. Right now, what I've deemed the DISD walls, the outside of the exhibition space, those are all artists from Billy Dade. So those are young artists that Ms. Gunter comes over and hangs their art. And I asked her, I was like, well, where are the other schools? And so connecting with those other teachers and getting into the institutions, so that we can show that these kids that they can produce work here, and they can have a gallery opening. They can experience these things that are important and critical in your development as a young artist. So I'm definitely interested in connecting with schools, and that's something that is on the top of my list.
I mean, I think a lot about how the art came to me when I was a teen. And I've spoken to a couple of the teachers at both Lincoln and Madison, and just really trying to understand today's teen in relationship to storytelling, being able to be in conversation with stories, being able to be in conversation with others. And while I was in Chicago, I was at Steppenwolf Theater Company, and they have a really robust page to stage program specifically dedicated to teens. So we'd choose a book, that book would be adapted and performed and presented on the stage, and there'd be a series of programming across discipline to actually have young people be in conversation with this piece. From them doing parties and gatherings to book club readings to workshops. And I'm not 100% sure that is what we'll do, but what I do know is there is a gap there for stories from the Black experience, both for teens and for young people, younger people. So I am curious how to use the work on stage to really interact with teens and high school students, both in the making, but also in the receiving and in just the overall conversation. It's something that impacted how I'm able to show up today. And if I had any offerings, I feel like that's important because they'll be our next patrons and, next audience members and next, cohort of artists. So.
I'm looking to hear from our youth, and that's one of the goals I have in the next 60 days is to really go to the schools and listen to them to hear what is it that you want in a museum. Do you know what the museum has for you? Do you know what we offer? How can we make it better? What will bring you into the museum? What are your needs? And meet them where they are. I've been on a listening tour for the last 45 days, and the one of the missing links is the youth. I'm very interested because they're our future. To hear what is it that will spark your imagination about walking through this sacred place. So that's my next move. One of the things that we did do, our summer program is robust. So what the operations manager did, she said, let's take the museum to them and it's not a pop-up, it's a little bit more than a pop-up, but they had the lessons and the education, and they were very engaged in the process of creating art. So that was something that was really good, and I'm looking to do that again next year.
Can I come to that visit with you?
You may. You
'Cause I
absolutely
think you're
may.
right. Like, young people are changing so rapidly. It doesn't hurt to be responsive in that way. Yeah, actually, I would.
We need to set that up. And I think what I'm hearing is that a lot of young people don't feel that they are being heard, that they're not included, but I'm over here doing my thing. You can't hear me. So I think we have to be intentional about it.
And there are ways in which I know that I've experienced before by building a young adult council, building some representation to be able to really
Exactly.
more structurally hear from them more often. Which actually, as we sit here, I'm like, oh, that actually may be a good thing for us all to collaborate on because they can help inform a lot of what we do. Yeah, absolutely. I can't fully speak to Dallas. Maybe you all can help inform me. Coming from LA though, and I'll speak to the Black young artists, very few places to cultivate their artistry, to provide mentorship, to provide opportunity to skills build, portfolio build, and showcase their work in a way that is culturally specific and not trying to break them down and remove their identity from their work. Even in a place like Los Angeles, the most creative place in the world, very few places to cultivate us. So I know there are pockets of community in Dallas that are doing that work. I'm hoping the force can just expand that because for me, artists are the truth tellers.
Yes, we are.
Artists are the ones who can see beyond this moment. They can allow us to strategize. And so I'm excited to open a place and invest in the artist. And I don't think we can have too many. I don't think we have too many places, especially when they're value aligned and they are really preparing us, or really preparing the artists rather to be their very best selves. So that's my perspective. Coming from LA, I'm going to come in and just expand and offer more.
Yeah, this ecosystem feels incredibly unique to me. Much like when you talked about how when you came and visited here, that made it real for you. Like, okay, you've got all of these things in South Dallas happening. There's something unique about that. Coming from Fort Worth, art is largely funded by private dollars. And so that makes the art look different. It just does. And so for us to have access to this building, a public space where artists can be creative and can grow and can learn and have access to the African American Museum where we can really dive deep into our history, and to have access to the Forest Theater where you can really put on a show, right? Like this is the next step. You don't have to go to, and I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, you don't have to go to the Moody, right? You can go to Forest Theater.
It's right here in your backyard.
Yeah.
And
You can produce work
with an
here.
open door.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's a safe space.
A space design especially for you.
Yep. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing, right? For us, by us, about us. Yeah.
I have nothing else to add. That's a wrap.
And our last closing question was just, is there anything that we didn't ask that you would want to share with the community neighbors or with each other? Just kind of last words.
For me I would say that being at this table tonight is a gift. And I'm looking forward to working with you both. We've been trying to meet for 3 months.
Since we all started.
About the same time.
Yeah.
We all started around the same time.
Well, Van's got a little bit more time on this, but
Like 2 weeks.
And when did you start, Nigel?
full-time August 4th.
Me was July 21st.
Yeah. And still feeling a little unsettled, but getting
your
closer.
legs.
Yeah. And grateful now more than ever. Like, right, being here has opened up the possibility. I sit across the street from the theater every day, so I see it's every day. There's something new. I see it. And I get chills. So if there's anything I want to say is I'm grateful to be introduced to you all. I'm grateful that we are coming together to build the table that I asked about.
At this time.
At this time, in this place. And yeah, I'm hoping, this is for the folks watching, but also for you all. Hold me accountable. Check on me. I know that our leaders don't always survive moments like these. And I know that I'm gonna require support. From both of you, but also from South Dallas, because we have to do this together.
Well, you will always have a place. If you need to run away from home for a while, you can always come over to the African American Museum.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll get some sandwiches.
Okay.
And we will commiserate.
You said just don't come during the fair.
Don't- But seriously, you will always have a place.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that I just want to reflect on the amount of love and reception we've received as newcomers into this community, and that has been a blessing for sure. and I don't take that for granted. I appreciate it every day. I'm excited that this table has been placed, and now we need more placemats on it.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to continuing and growing and building and collaborating with us, for us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for this time. I appreciate you.